Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of supernatural fantasy and or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Midnight Texas. Another fantastic episode. A lot of interesting things in this episode. Obviously, Joe and Chewie, but obviously breaking everything down. The main focus of this episode is we have Bowie and a fellow fallen angel who's come after Joe because, like Joe said, people will come looking for him after he used his powers, which is kind of interesting. It seems like Bowie's the only one that came after him because she's also fallen too. Because it seems like she's like, oh, I kind of got let go because of my anger issues and stuff like that. It's like, kind of see it. Like, you kind of see from the very beginning she wasn't the most stable, because the fact of the matter is she was like, oh man, Joe, you love all this killing, right? I mean, yeah, we're fighting demons and stuff. Oh man, this killing is so good. Killing. It's just, she really loved it. And she's like, it's a little hard at first, but man, you get used to it, and it's like, oh, killing demons. I mean, it also turns out she doesn't like supernaturals either. That's kind of interesting. No matter what the degree is, like, if you, I guess she looks at supernaturals as the same thing as demons, your abominations, because she's even looking down on the raft and like, oh, you're not human, but you're not an animal either. You know what you are? You're nothing. And it's like, wow. I mean, let's face it, Bowie was an asshole. I mean, granted, was she always like that? I don't know. The fact is that she was so pissed at Joe. I was thinking, like, okay, is it like some weird thing where she actually like had deep feelings for Joe or something like that? But it turns out Joe, it wasn't even like that. She was Joe's mentor, and the fact of the matter is, it's like, you were going to be my top mentor, but then you betrayed me. Not only did you fall, you hooked up with a filthy demon, and it's like, she basically, it seems like she became the laughingstock of heaven. Which is something I'm very curious to find out too, is where does the rest of heaven fall on this? Like, are a lot of people in heaven like Bowie, or a lot of people, or is there, like, you know, much like people, there's some who are like Bowie, others who aren't, or maybe some who are a little more open-minded like Joe. I would kind of think with the grand scale of things, I feel like Joe's probably like 1 in a million when it comes to kind of being as open-minded as he is. Because what I was also thinking is, like, the fact is, because Bowie's fallen, that's why she came, but it's like, why no one else has, or granted, we don't know if anyone else is going to come for Joe in the future, but maybe it's just because the signal didn't quite hit up there. I mean, it doesn't seem like angels come down to earth that often anyway, so I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. I mean, she says she kind of fell because of her anger issues, but could it also be the fact it's because of Joe falling and going off with Chewie? Did she get fired from her job? They're like, yeah, you're terrible at your job because your protege actually went off and met off with a demon. Yeah, you're out. You're laughingstock of the angels and stuff like that. But this is an interesting episode. It brought up obviously a lot of things. Obviously, Joe reveals everything to everyone. We do find out that Chewie is a demon. Guessed as much. Just made the most sense. Turns out we did get a little twist on it that Chewie isn't full demon. He's actually only half demon. And Fiji's like, oh, so your parents have that kind of a forbidden love too, like you and Joe? It's like, there was no love. And it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. But he's like, yeah, but I loved my mom, so she's the one that taught him how to suppress his demon powers, his demon side. Which Joe kind of brings up the fact is that Chewie using his demon powers, which a demon is the only thing that could really tackle and kill a angel, because like they're kind of immortal. Probably the only thing that could ever kill them is probably an angel of equal power, which Joe isn't, because she's even older than Joe. But probably an angel of equal power, or a demon, in this case Chewie, which is kind of interesting when you break it down. Like, obviously we got to see it in this episode, Chewie's demon side, but it's impressive because he's only half demon. He was able to kill someone like Bowie, which kind of makes you go, if that's a half demon, what the hell is a full demon? Like, that's even something Manfred brings up, like, you know, so that's just kind of interesting seeing that scale and seeing him like bite into her neck. It's also pretty, like, because she goaded about it. She's like, have you ever seen what it looks like when an angel dies? Well, we got to see it. It's like a huge burst of like purple energy in the air. That was brutal. And Chewie kind of losing control, but fortunately enough, Joe was able to pull him back. Though, you know, at the end, Chewie's like, I got to get away from here, because the veil, like, because he transformed, I think already enough, it was already hard enough, but he spent so many years trying to pull it back that the veil didn't affect him too much. But the fact is, he let his demon side out a little bit, and it was already hard to control. Now the veil's just going to make that even harder. Because the last time he lost control like that, it took him 3 years for Chewie to get like complete control back. So, I mean, a big part in this, I mean, because But before I go there, where I was about to go, sorry, I'm all over the place. It didn't even cross my mind to think about what Fiji would feel like the moment it gets revealed that Chewie is a demon. Granted, she didn't get caught up on it too long, but the fact of the matter is she's already dealing with a demon of her own. Now finding out that someone that's in her town, someone she considers a friend, is a demon too, that's got to make things a little hard. But now I'm like, oh man, like, that's not what really got her. What really got her is the fact is now it's like everyone's got secrets. Like, you learn Bobo's secret. It doesn't even seem like Olivia has her secret, but it seems like Fiji knows about her whole deal. So probably even know the side of her about her dad and everything like that. So that's not a secret. But they're probably like finding out about Manfred, now Joe and Chewie. It's just things stacked on top of each other, and it's something she kind of loses it a little at the end of the episode. Not in a sense of like, I mean, you can't blame her because like the quiet life that she once knew in like Midnight. Yeah, Midnight had its problems and everything, but it was a very quiet town. And now everything's going up in smoke. She's got dealing with a demon that's whispering in her ear. She can't see. She just always feels its presence around her. She's always waiting for it to say something. Even when they're silent, she just halfway expects it. Finding out about Bobo and then finding out all this, she's like, everyone's got secrets. And Bobo kind of turns on her and is like, what about you? She's like, well, yeah, I got secrets, but not that would, that would hurt me or anyone. And he's like, oh, you can't be too sure of that. And that's the case. That's why everyone else kept their secrets, because it's like, if I got the secret, I'll deal with it myself, because I can't ask other people to do it. That's why Joe kept so quiet, because it's not only about protecting them. It was like, he felt like if he got them involved, Bowie would kill them all too. And it's like, he didn't want to get the people in this town, these innocent people, involved in everything. So it's actually, I don't know, like, I mean, everyone's on that same wavelength. I mean, Manfred had his own reason because it's like, I mean, he spent most of his life being kind of the freak and in places he goes because of what he can see and everything. So I'm sure for him, he's like, I'm not willing to kind of go through that again. Even when it came out that other people were things too, for him it's just like, nah, I can't do it. So it does beg the question, what secrets does Fiji have? Because that was a big thing about this episode, is what I was going to get to, is the fact is everyone has secrets, and this episode kind of sparked that. It's like, yeah, everyone's keeping all these secrets. Oh, I wonder, like, and everyone kind of starts spilling theirs. Like, Bobo admits, like, no matter how messed up his family is, he kind of misses them to a certain extent. He misses his mom. He misses like Thanksgiving dinner and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, and I love you. And she's like, Fiji's like, okay. And it's just like, that was such an interesting response, because I'm sure for her, she's very conflicted. She's always had feelings for Bobo, obviously, probably even relative before this whole thing went down. Probably like the first time she met Bobo, there was probably something there, like they were best friends and everything. But now it's that awkward situation where like they took that step forward, but then all this stuff about Bobo came out, and now she's reserved about it. Plus she's got this whole demon thing, so her situation's complicated. Her and Bobo's situation is very, very complicated. Then you had the whole conversation between Olivia and Lemuel, which is kind of an interesting thing, that Olivia's like, you do know this can't go on forever. It's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm going to get older and everything. I was like, oh, you talking about the whole, like, part of me was almost wondering, like, oh, are you going to tell him to bite you because you don't want to be old forever? You want to be young forever? And then he'll have to be like, no, I don't want you to turn. It's like, no, it's complete opposite. She's like, yeah, like, soon enough, I'm going to have to leave, because it's like, this can't go on forever, because I don't want you to bite me. I don't want to be a vampire. And then, Lemuel kind of smiles as he kind of accepts and just nods. It's like, yeah, let's enjoy it for as long as we have it. But you see it kind of hit him. It's probably a thing that Lemuel did think about, because the conversation came up back in episode 3, when the people from Lemuel's past showed up and everything, about like this whole, like, the fact is that he hadn't turned her. So it seemed like he had no, like, ever thought, like, I don't know whether it's a situation that he never thought about it, but this whole thing put it in perspective for him. It's like, that is something he's got to think about. Like, Olivia won't be around forever. Even in the sense of like, living to be an old lady, she won't stick around that long. Like, it's just like, I guess for her, she wants to move on before things kind of get too long in the teeth, so that she can go off and do whatever she wants to. Maybe the whole thought is like, oh, what about having a family and stuff like that? Maybe for Olivia, there's that to think about too, like before she gets too old or something like that. And so it's kind of interesting. I'm very interested to see where they go on those fronts. Like, more about Fiji's secrets, about, I feel like there's going to be more about Bobo's family, but also this whole thing between Lemuel and Olivia, that just sparked an interesting thought, because even at the end of the episode, it's like, yeah, this day taught me a lot more than I thought, It was also interesting seeing him trying to use his powers on Chewie too, because when he tried to use them, they kind of backfired on him and he starts spitting out like black blood. So it looks like even his powers are drained, don't work on him. It also makes you wonder, would the same thing work if he tried using his teeth? Like if he bit into his neck, like I would assume. I guess like demonic energy is so gnarly that it's poisonous to them. So I'd assume their blood would be the same way. So, but it wasn't just them that got kicked in the teeth by this whole situation. Creek and Manfred already did too. Now Manfred wanted to give Creek her space because she's trying to like work to kind of compensate for everything. She's like, I'm done moping. And you know, her way of trying to deal with things is just kind of work so she doesn't have to be caught up in it. Manfred's trying to give her space, but also, you know, trying to be close enough that he can, you know, be there to help her. He actually tried to get in contact with her mom, but couldn't reach her spirit for whatever reason. But that whole like thing, like, you know, Bowie being kind of the almost sadist that she is, like reading people's mind, which is kind of interesting that we find that out. I even love that Fiji and Bobo were like, wait, you could read our minds in this entire time? He's like, yeah, but I mean, I never actually did. He's like, that's not right of me to use that power. I haven't used it in a very, very long time, which is just like, huh. And it seems like, I mean, I guess maybe, I mean, for one, he'd have to touch you, but I get, you know, it seems like you'd know if he was using it because it seems like it puts you almost in like a very persuasive like position, like the moment it's happening to you, like you can't fight it, which I love the way like Manfred was like, Grandma and Zelda, I need your help with this and I'm not gonna like it, and she possessed him and made it hard for Bowie to read his mind and everything. And afterwards he was just kind of like, she's like, yeah, well that worked. She's looking at him all awkward and he's looking at her, he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go and we're just gonna pretend like this didn't happen. That's gotta be weird because like for him, it's almost, I guess when getting possessed is almost like having a ghost inside of every part of your body, all in your cells. It's like almost in a weird way, it's almost an intimate thing, and to have your grandma do it, it has to be like the weirdest freaking thing for Manfred. He naturally doesn't like being possessed and everything. I mean, being a medium, that's kind of a no-brainer there, but for it to be your grandmother possesses you, that just, ugh. That is kind of interesting how that works too. I would think Manfred's head would already kind of like be hard to kind of deal with because of the fact is that all the ghosts that he sees and stuff like that. But then, you know, I feel like that would coincide with hearing them. But maybe like was with Zelda in his head, like a combination. Maybe like Zelda's spirit kind of like muffles his head or like fills it with random stuff. I don't know. Or maybe it kind of amplifies it and kind of makes it kind of like one spirit inside of his head is like 50 going off in his head or something like that, to the point Bowie couldn't read his mind. I don't know. I really like to understand like how exactly that works. I don't know. But getting back to it, Creek was basically thinking in the back of her mind like, yeah, it's fine and dandy that, you know, Manfred can see spirits and stuff like that, but what's the point of being with a psychic if he can't even tell you you know, what's up, because he wasn't there to warn her about her brother and her dad, even though he's a psychic, he's in this, and it sucks, because obviously, like, Creek is like, I didn't, you know, what that was said was mean, it's like, you know, I'm sorry, because it's not like, I mean, and there wasn't, and she, at least she didn't try and deny it, because honestly, everyone thinks terrible things in the back of their head. The question is whether or not you'll say them or not. I mean, it's not like that makes it any better. It's like, oh, she would never have said it. It's like the fact that she thought it, and that's kind of thing. But then, understandably, it's her grief and everything. Like, her entire life is a lie, and it's just like, I don't know. I was actually halfway expecting her when she was saying everything at the end about like her and Manfred kind of have to end things because she has to figure out who she is on her own, because she's always spent so much of her life being something to someone else. She's been a big sister. She's been a daughter. Like, that made up so much of her life, and now we understand why her dad put her in that position anyway. But that made up her own life. She could never be her own person. She had to fill those roles, and now she's filling the role of a girlfriend. And it's like she has to find out who she is, what she wants out of life and everything, and she needs to do that alone. And Manfred's trying to respect that too. It's just a sad turn of events. I mean, it's sad because Manfred was even talking to it about Joe, because Joe's like, hey, I think you're this person to save the day and everything. And like, Manfred's like, no. The only reason why you think that is because you were here a millennia ago when the war happened, when the veil broke. So you need me to be that person, because if I'm not, then you don't have anyone else to call to arms for this thing. So, because there was a part, like, even Bowie was reading into Manfred's head, like, oh, you think you're going to be the one to save this town? You're very egotistical and full of yourself. And it's like, I guess for Manfred, it's like for once in his life, he can be something important, especially because he heard all those stories from his family, like, oh, they fought demons, they did this. And now that he learns the truth about demons and them existing, which arguably is like, why wouldn't you think they exist anyway? Why wouldn't any of that be true? I guess because they're a family of grifters, he just all of that. Well, especially his grandmother in particular, I guess it was like, well, it's a no brainer that that's just some like wise tales that we said to kind of, boost up our profile to get a lot more people interested, like, oh, your family fought demons and stuff like that. So, but now he knows there might be some truth to that. So maybe he's thinking like, maybe there's more to me. Maybe I have a greater purpose. Maybe I can do something. Maybe I can help people. Maybe I don't have to just be the freak who can see ghosts, essentially, you know? So, but Creek was his only reason for staying here. And now he's like, I'm doing what I normally do. And that's bail. So he ended up leaving midnight. And like I said, I thought it was kind of interesting because I was so sure it was actually going to be the other way around. I thought Creek was going to leave midnight because she doesn't really have any reason to stay anymore. She's not trying to see her dad. And she's not, her brother's no longer there. Though, to be fair, no matter what the circumstances may be, midnight's still her home. So for Manfred, he hasn't, like, he cares about the place, but like his main reason for staying has always been Creek. And so now that relationship's over, he doesn't have a reason to stay, and I'm hopefully going forward, he will find a reason to stay. I will kind of say this because it's kind of spoilers. I've already seen the preview because there was a thing that came up with the preview, which I'll get to at the end of this, but I just had to check it out, so I ended up catching a preview of the next episode. So kind of got that spoiled for me, but obviously I won't say like what goes down exactly, but looks very interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens. A little quick note too, it's kind of interesting too, we get to see like angels fight too, not even just like using powers, it's like hand-to-hand combat. They are pretty Joe can handle himself, even against Bowie. That was kind of interesting. It's also interesting too, I guess because Supernatural's got that in my head that like angels use weapons like blades and stuff. So it doesn't seem like that. It seems like they're armed with their light and that's it. To the point, because that demon at the beginning, Bowie ended up light on his hand, on his chest, and ended up ripping his heart out like that. Which it seems like she recognized him as a demon immediately, but he didn't recognize her as an angel. It's kind of interesting that it doesn't work that way. I mean, also, that's a question too, like, what do demons look like? I mean, I doubt, like, oh, demons look like Chewie. I'm sure, like, Chewie looks the way he does because his dad's half demon. Which, that's probably, now that that's out there too, that seems like that's another thing that might be setting up. It's like, oh, Chewie having to confront his dad or something like that. I don't know. Because we never actually got to see what kind of demon the guy was that Bowie killed at the beginning, so I don't know. Oh yeah, and there was also one thing too. There's this little slide note about Madonna, who runs the place that Creek works at. There's like the whole line of like, oh, sit down, I know exactly how you got the money to pay for this place, which is like, okay, that doesn't I don't know whether that was just kind of like a wink and a nudge to like that character, Madonna's character, being like, oh, she got this money on some unsavory or very shady circumstances or something. I'm curious about that. Like, I wonder, was that like a throwaway line, or is that supposed to represent something too? Like I said, this is a cool episode of like all these secrets and truths coming up to the surface, and now what they mean. This episode changed everything for everyone. No one's going to look at anything the same way anymore. No one's going to be the same after this episode. Even Creek. Like, Creek wasn't already in the best position from the very beginning, but now it's like, after everything's been said and done, she's in a very different position. Everyone is. And I'm very interested to see where all this takes us in next week's episode, or rather episodes, as I kind of brought up earlier. I caught the preview. It seems that next week they're doing a special thing where it's going to be 2 nights. There'll be a new episode on Monday, and there'll also be a new episode on Tuesday, same time as it normally is. So do keep that in mind. 2 new episodes next week, one on Monday and one on Tuesday. So I'm very excited to see what goes down in both of them. I haven't 100% decided yet which one I'm going to do, like in a sense of like, am I going to do it night to night, or am I going to do them separately, or am I going to like wait till Tuesday night and do them both, or like do one like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I would guess I would just have to wait till next week to see, but either way I will be doing both episodes, whether they're going to be together or not, or whether the episode on Tuesday gets lumped with somewhere between next week. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So that's more so for me. That really doesn't affect you at all. That's really just comes down to how I want to distribute it. So we'll see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.